I'm Lewis Roden. I'm interviewing Sergeant Annette Keys on behalf of the Veterans History Project for Prince George's Community College, in cooperation with the Office of Congresswoman Donna L. Edwards and the Library of Congress. Today's date is October 10th, 2014. We are located in the television studio of Prince George's Community College in Largo, Maryland. Included in the room are the camera operators, Abdullahi Ero, Zachary Goldsmith, and Jacqueline DeShields. The floor director is Valencia Robinson. The project coordinators are Professors Teresa Dowell-Vest and Dr. Sherelle Williams. The purpose of this interview is to gain insight into the life of United States military veterans currently residing in the state of Maryland. Let's begin. How shall I address you?
Annette, or Annette Keys.
Annette
Yes.
Keys. Well, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
Can you tell us the highest rank you achieved in the military?
I was a technical sergeant in the United States Air Force.
Let's go back to before you joined the military. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in a small town called Brooksville, Florida. It's probably about a half an hour away from the largest city of Tampa, Florida.
And can you tell me a bit about your family?
I grew up with three brothers and two sisters. I'm the next to the youngest one. Grew up a very, very young, I guess not very wealthy family or anything like that. We grew up kind of, just down in the South, and with my dad's father, his brothers, and my mom. Nothing really special. Farm. My uncle actually had a farm, so we played around there. Just the average family.
What were the ages of your siblings?
I had my oldest brother. The oldest brother is probably about 12 years older than I am. The next one, I guess, you mean current age now?
No, age range between you and
the current.
12 years older for the oldest.
Yeah,
and
12
the
years older. So, but my youngest sister is 2 years old. We're all about 2 years apart.
Okay. And your mother and father in the same household, and your uncles live nearby?
Yes, I had two uncles. I had an uncle who was actually a next door neighbor to me, and then I had another uncle that was probably about a mile away from it. But yes, mom and dad both living in the same house growing up.
And were any of your siblings or either of your parents in the military?
Neither one of my parents were in the military, and no one had thought to actually join the military. My next to the oldest brother had joined ROTC, Air Force ROTC in high school, and we thought that he was going to be the only person that would actually join the military. Well, it turns out that it just worked just the opposite way. Everyone else joined the military except for the one brother.
Do you know why he did not just join the military?
Just medical issues for him that he actually wasn't able to join, and the rest of us, it just seems like an ideal thing to do when you get to be that age. 18 years old, and mom wants to know exactly what you're going to be doing. So it seemed like the military was the next course of action for us to go through.
I'm going to get to your decision to join the military in a moment, but let's go back a little bit to growing up.
Okay.
Where did you go to school, for elementary school, middle school?
All of it was in Brooksville, Florida, and so there was the elementary school. Like I said, it's a small town, so all of the schools are probably within a radius of 5 miles of each other. So I graduated from Hernando High School. At that point, also that I had joined in the ROTC program as well. Still not dedicated, saying that I was really going to join the military. So. But I was in ROTC, and I was on the drill team. It seemed okay, but it was something to do as a teenager at the time.
Who were some of your friends growing up before you got to high school?
Oh, well, definitely everyone that was on the drill team. So one of my bestest friends, Angela Smith, and she was a drill team leader just like myself. There were only 2 female drill team leaders, so she was my best friend. Because of that, we spent a lot of time together, practicing the drills, different things like that. So Angela Smith, best friend. some Colleen Nelson, just about, it was a family thing with everyone being in the drill team. We stayed over each other's houses, different things like that. Another one of a good friend of mine was, that lived only just a couple doors down from us, was Jerome Brown, the football player that played for the Philadelphia Eagles as well.
On the drill team, was this an everyday practice, and then is this preparation for ROTC? Is this preparation for the military?
The drill team is everyday. It's almost an everyday practice for a couple hours a day. So there were different competitions to actually go into. So there were exhibition, and there were also then where all the schools around the state of Florida would actually get together to see which team actually had the best drill team. So those who can find regulations, and those who would also find out how creative they were in actually doing exhibits with their leadership skills, as knowing how to turn to the left or to the right, or how in sync everyone was.
Was Brooksville a military town or military area?
Not really, not really. Brooksville, like I said, it was so small. The only thing was probably there was a couple feed stores. We were probably just getting a McDonald's or something that was in the, so everyone was always going to Tampa, different things like that. It was a lot of farm areas too. A lot of people just did not have their own going to the different grocery stores because they had farms. So I think I was probably a teenager before we actually really went to the store to ever buy meat. We had chickens, and my uncle, of course, he had hogs. We always had a cow. We had horses. So, I mean, there were animals all over the place. So
you were fairly self-sufficient.
Oh, absolutely. For the summer, what my dad called summer was cleaning just tons of fish, picking peas, picking beans, picking anything. So any kind of vegetables. So we had all vegetables and we had all meat. So the only thing that we really needed to go to the store for were like rice and potatoes and things like that.
Explain a typical day in the summertime growing up.
Well, my dad didn't let us sleep that long, so we would get up, and there would be a closed basket full of peas. And since there were 6 of us, there were 6 baskets, and they were laid out. So everyone would have what they need to do for the picking peas and shelling the different peas on a typical Saturday. That would be waking up to that my dad saying that the water is ready for us to get ready to do a chicken plucking contest. So on just about every Saturday, so he would have the chickens and everything already, had the heads cut off, and it was a race, and that was the kind of motivation. Let's just get this done. So we would probably slaughter maybe about 12 Saturday, maybe every other Saturday, maybe twice a month.
And was this just for the family or for the community, or?
No, this is just for the family. So a family of 6 kids and 2 adults, 8. Yeah, they ate quite a bit. Yes. Mm-hmm.
What are some of your fondest memories of that time?
Probably definitely the summers. Probably definitely the summers. My dad would actually grow. He would order biddies, small chicks, from the feed store. And we would go to the feed store and pick them up, and that was a great time because we would actually play with all the chicks or whatever. Once they start getting a little bit bigger, it was like, yeah, we don't want that because we know what's going to happen. You don't want to kind of get attached to it. So, but just with family, going to my uncle's house, who is still living, in his early 90s. Going to my uncle's where he had a much larger farm, when he had maybe about 50 head of cattle, and maybe the same thing with pigs and chicken and geese and dogs, and I mean just kind of hanging out, clean, fresh air, running around.
Okay. Let's go back to the high school time. Can you describe the difference between ROTC and the drill team?
Well, the ROTC is you have ROTC, and what you're learning about this was an Air Force ROTC. And you actually learn how to put on the uniform, and still not committed to, at that point, still was not committed to going to the military. But you learn how to wear the uniform properly. You will also learn the different commands, you know, how to stand at attention, how to do an about face, which is turning around. So you learn different commands. So, and that was regular ROTC. They also learn about the space age, you know, when did the Air Force actually come into existence, and, you know, how did they come about? And then, of course, the drill team was all about marching. So we would probably march hours a day, so probably anywhere from 3 to 5 hours a day.
Oh, that's sounds kind of grueling for a typical high school student. You've got your homework, and then you have this. Can you talk about a typical day when you're doing the drill team and you're doing your high school?
Absolutely. As soon as we would finish, that was one of the things. We actually had a great. You would actually sit and you would do homework afterwards. We had one of the instructors that would want to make sure that you kept your grades up, because if your grades weren't up, then you were not allowed to go on to some of the competitions. So, you know, and everything depends on the height of the person. So you learn to move in unison, of course, because the person that's in front of you. So it kind of made everything, you had to readjust if someone wasn't there. So homework was done, and then from that time we would get into line. Everyone would line up. The leaders and commanders were students who had had more experience, and that's how they were actually chosen. And we would just march. We would just make sure that you're listening, make sure that you're on the right foot, marching at the same time, making sure that you're stopping at the same time. Everything was just very choreographed.
Did you win any of the state competitions?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Now it's probably been a really, really long time since that I don't know which regions that we actually won, but we definitely won a lot. It was a great drill team. It was great. They weren't back in the 80s, and this is probably back in 84, 85. There weren't a lot of just female drill teams, and we had just all females, and that was an unusual thing. So when they actually brought up for female drill teams, the competition was probably about 2 or 3. So it wasn't that hard to actually beat out the competition.
Describe one of the competitions where you did win and how you felt afterward.
Elated. That was all the hard work had paid out. Of course, you know, my mom, of course, being on me, you know, that drill team, you don't think about anything else but marching and doing that, but it made it all worthwhile. My mom actually told me too, she said that I was losing too much weight because you would literally march, you know, for that many hours, and she's like, you need to eat more, and that was her big thing. And but it was great. It was a great feeling, sense of accomplishment to bring the trophy back to that very small town that people didn't know about.
It sounds like you had a lot of family support for the drill team. Did that family support follow you through your career?
Absolutely, absolutely. Of course, my first duty station was overseas. I didn't want to be too close to home, but I didn't expect to be all the way overseas. So I was kind of afraid. I was 18 years old going over. So getting on different planes, and so the first thing that you do is you call back home. Hey, I'm here. You know, I don't even quite remember if that was my first time on an airplane to fly all the way across, you know, overseas too. So.
Where specifically did you serve?
It was in Rotc, Turkey.
In Turkey.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to come back to that, but I want to go before that. Go to your training.
Okay.
How did you choose the Air Force over the other branches of the military?
Well, I think the Air Force actually chose me.
Please explain.
The Air Force chose because at that particular time, the Air Force recruiter said it was going to be a long wait. My mom was kind of in a hurry for me to make a decision on what I was going to do. So to pretty much appease my mom, I said, okay, whatever that's open, I'll just join. So I had gotten ready to take my test, getting ready to join the Army. And the Army recruiter looked at me one day and he said, you know what, there's the Air Force recruiter. He says, that's him. I think you should go talk to him. And after speaking to him, he says, oh yeah, sure, we'll get you right in. And it was history after that. Everything moved very, very quickly right after that.
Why do you think the Army recruiter sent you to the Air Force?
I don't know. I think I did well on my test. He wanted to make sure that that's highly unusual and unlikely that someone would actually do that. But he pointed him out, and that was great.
And what did the Air Force recruiters say that convinced you that that was the right choice?
Well, because I had been in Air Force ROTC, so Air Force would have always been my first choice. Okay. But of course, like I said, when your mom is saying, okay, make a choice, make a decision, move quick, and that's what I was trying to do.
And why was college not one of your choices?
I wasn't the best student. I wasn't the best student, and I had just finished 12 years, high school, and you're thinking like, that's it for me. I won't do that anymore. So,
where were you actually trained? Where did you do your boot camp?
It was in Texas. They have a Air Force Base, Lackland Air Force Base.
How was it to actually get to Lackland? So we'll start with, you decided to go to the Air Force, and then one day it's time to ship out.
Absolutely. Decided to go to the Air Force. Needed to do a physical. And of course, they send you a little bus ticket. So send me to Tampa, and I'm going to Tampa to get ready to do my physical and come back, of course, the next day. So my dad drops me off. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow. Okay. And when I go in, I do my physical, I pass, and they're talking to you about, hey, so when are you interested in going in? I says, well, my mom wants me to be gone pretty soon to get started with the rest of my life. And they says, well, what about tomorrow? And I said, yes. And I raised my right hand, I swear in, and I was off. My mom came in just before I shipped out, gave me big hugs and kisses and said, didn't think it was going to be that quick. And I was gone I flew out to Texas the very next day.
Did you have a chance to pack up or anything?
Nope, didn't have a chance to pack up. It was just time. I felt ready and was ready to go. So no time to pack. And I guess that's why I think that it kind of chose me. Being in ROTC kind of taught you, how the people in the past in the military had gotten ready and doing different things. You read about it. So when the time actually comes, and then studied it for 4 years. So I think when the time came, I was just ready.
And how close was the actuality to what you had read for 4 years?
Well, I think it was a lot of the big history stuff. But I don't think it really kind of sunk in until you're getting on the plane and you're swearing in with 20, 30 other people, and you're promising to serve your country, and you're promising to take orders from all your superiors and to follow the orders of the President of the United States for the rest of your life. And you're thinking like, wow.
Let's go back to the plane ride. So you're in Tampa and you're flying to Lackland. What was the plane ride like?
I think for me it was sobering that, okay, you've really done this, okay, here we go, let's get ready. The expectation, I think I was really trying to figure out what was really expected of me now. So I guess I'm an introvert, so I was kind of to myself and, okay, let's do this. So I was ready. I was trying to get myself prepared for when I got off the plane, what would happen next, trying to prepare yourself to for the change for the rest of your life. It's really different. Was
there anyone you knew going with you?
No, there was no one that I knew. I was just it was just me.
From your high school days, did any of your friends also join the military around the same time?
Because I left so suddenly, the rest of them may have had a delayed, delayed enlistment. My parents actually moved away from Brooksville, so when I finally had an opportunity to go back, a lot of people had kind of moved away, but no, not too many people had joined the military, to my surprise.
Do you think that your drill team, your ROTC, sort of prepared you for that lifestyle? Absolutely,
absolutely. I knew exactly all of the commands. When they said attention, when they said about face, I had a command voice. That's something that they teach you in ROTC. They teach you how to speak from your diaphragm and to be vocal with it. So everyone that you are talking to can actually hear you. So I was definitely prepared for all of that. So much more than everyone else that was in my group when I got to basic training.
For the people who are in your group, do you know if a large percentage of them had also done ROTC?
There were only two, and there were only two others, and they were pretty happy when there was somebody else that came along that actually knew, pretty much the same thing. So we kind of hung together. It was great, because they knew the different commands and everything. So of course that's how we got to be squad leaders and kind of picked on. Well, you guys know what to do, so here you guys go out front.
Okay. Did you become a squad leader right away?
I did not. I kind of wanted to keep that quiet. As you said, you're kind of getting used to everything. Right. So I tried to keep it quiet a little bit, but once they actually found out that you actually did have ROTC, that they actually did try to put you out front.
I'm sure you had heard stories about what basic training was going to be like. Mm-hmm. How close were the stories to the reality?
It was there. It was pretty close. The running, there was quite a bit of running. I just knew that it was something that just had to be done. It wasn't that I could look back. It was just I really just needed to do it. I just really needed to go forward. So every task that they brought up for the running, whether it was running or putting your shoes together, making sure that they're lined up, or putting T-shirts where they're lined up. It all served a purpose. Of course I didn't know then, but I don't think you can kind of get prepared. You just have to live it.
Paint the picture for me. In your space, you have your bed and your shoes. Where does everything go? What is it supposed to look like?
Your bed is supposed to be neatly made. Your corners are squared. You have a nice little blanket and it's nice and squared. So it's just one mattress on there and it's a whole open bay. So there's probably maybe about 40, 50 other females. And then there's a chair that's right adjacent to where your bed is. There you have your clothes that are neatly there. Your shoes are aligned up, and which are probably like your tennis shoes, because you're going to do PT first thing in the morning, which is you have probably about 3 minutes to get all your clothes on, get your hair up if it's actually on your collar, and be ready to go.
How would you fold your clothes so they were ready for you in the morning?
Well, they actually had to be cornered, they had to be centered, and there was a nighttime where individuals would actually come around to make sure that your clothes were ready and everything was centered, so that they would probably, it's almost like a night inspection to make sure everything was actually centered. And like I said, there was a reason for it. I didn't understand it then, but your shirts, your teammates or your bunk mates or whatever would make sure, you would check each other. It's like, no, I think this is off a little bit. And we would have rulers and we just centering things. There's 2 inches this side and there's 4 inches on this side. You got to move it over a little bit. So,
shoes under the chair or under the bed?
Shoes, shower shoes under the bed, squared. Gym shoes that's right by the under the chair, and it's kind of flush, probably over to one corner or one side. Mm-hmm.
And what's the reason for all this?
The reason is to see if you can follow instructions. It doesn't necessarily have to. It doesn't make sense at the time, but it's, can you follow instructions? If I tell you to put your shoes close to your chair, 2 inches away from your chair, can you just do it and not ask me questions? So on the battlefield, or things sometimes that supervisor won't have time to explain to you why you should move 2 inches to the left or right if there was something that was going on. You just need to be able to take them from the word and move. It might save your life one day.
Was there a point during your training when you understood that?
No. I think it took a while. It really took a while for you to understand. Only when I saw other new recruits that were actually coming in, and I was thinking like, oh yeah, okay, now it's starting to come and take focus, you would understand why it was really important, especially when new recruits would come in and they would say, why? And you would say, see, if you would learn how to do your shoes the right way, you wouldn't ask questions. But But it was great. It was a real learning experience. It's things that I actually still take with me today, just from basic training. I still take some things with me about it today. I don't square anything.
Okay.
Don't square corners. Don't square shoes. Put shoes around. But just being able to sometimes be able to take orders.
Okay. What would happen if things weren't right? If they did the night inspection and you were off by 2 inches?
They actually had a form that the form was actually pulled to actually let you know that you did not meet that standard at that time. And if you actually had enough forms that were pulled, then that meant that maybe you're not quite ready. Maybe we should put you back, starting back. So if I said 6 weeks, if you're at week 4, maybe we need to put you back at week 2 so you can kind of really learn how to take some orders.
Did that happen to anyone?
It happened to a lot of people.
You remember any specific incidents where it happened to someone that you were training with?
I don't
Or someone you
believe,
trained?
well, for not specifically for that, there were other ones where, and I probably should have caveated that says that the military was not always for everyone. And that's just also another time to kind of weed things out and let people know, even though you thought it was a good idea, maybe that's just not quite for you. And a lot of times a lot of them just thought, okay, time out, I'm done. And a lot of them did actually go home.
So someone could actually go to boot camp and decide, I quit, I'm going home.
There were specific instances where, talking to the drill instructor, where they can kind of talk to them and say, yeah, okay, this is not for me. So you get mom, dad on the phone, and somebody come picks you up, or you fly back home.
What are some of your fondest memories of your experience in boot camp?
I guess graduation.
Yeah.
Graduation. Well, just before, and you knew that graduation was coming because you could do the confidence course. The confidence course was to build that confidence, and you could see how much that you've actually grown. For individuals that you did not know, and they were strangers, and you can kind of pass by and hi or whatever, that was your buddy, that they would cheer you on and will help you in, and they would tell you that you can do it, you can make that next mile, you can get over the tall wall or whatever. So I thought that was great. Once you finish that, you finished a couple other things, you knew that graduation is right around the corner. But there was one other thing, MREs. That was really interesting. As a matter of fact, I still have MREs because I always like to be prepared for everything. It's just, I guess it's the military kind of embeds that to you. You want to be prepared for everything, whatever could go wrong.
Tell me what the MREs are like.
I think this particular morning that I had, that when I was in basic training, I think we had breakfast and we probably had lunch. So you could get some water, and you would pour this water into a packet of sausage, and it would actually rehydrate. And now you have sausage and you have eggs and different things like that. Taste probably wasn't the best, but it did the job.
Do you remember what it tastes like?
Probably more salty than anything. But it just, the sausage probably had like a smoky flavor. The eggs were kind of, okay, these are eggs. And I think maybe had some lunch. But it was sometimes when you're hungry, you will eat it, and it's great.
What was the most challenging part of boot camp?
I just think you had to have a whole brand new mindset. You had to learn you had to learn different things, even though I knew the different commands. They actually did, you ate at the specific time. You drank exactly what they told you because it was hot there, and I went in the month of September. There was really, really hot in Texas, and you had to drink a lot of water. They wanted to make sure, for safety reasons, that everyone stayed hydrated. So before I could eat, we'd have to drink down 2 glasses of water. You stand until everyone at your table was ready to sit down. You ate when everyone was done. So being, I guess like I said, being an introvert, I was used to doing things by myself, and now I had to share a table and bedroom with about 50 other females.
What was the biggest adjustment to the military culture from your home culture, your home life?
Well, my dad is a pretty soft-spoken guy, and so of course they could actually be really, really loud. The military could be really loud. I mean, you're singing and you're running, and they want you to be fit. And they, we probably did some pretty dangerous things, as being kids. We played with this and we did this, but they were really, really good about ensuring that safety was always at the forefront. When you march, how hot was it outside, how much water you drinking. I remember injuring myself just slightly after doing the confidence course, and I was put on just a small reduced schedule, and I was like, wow, that's great, and I kind of expected to push through it, but they really took care of me. I could see that they were starting to really care for me.
What was the biggest danger for someone going through boot camp?
The biggest danger is actually really not listening to the training instructor. They will tell you the safe way to actually do a job. Even though that you've probably done it 9 or 10 times, they'll probably tell you the probably a correct way to run. They'll probably tell you what shoes that you probably should get. And because we've ran for the 18 years of our life, we think that we know better. But you can injure yourself, in doing the run, because sometimes it is heat. Sometimes you have to walk or do things in adverse weather. So you have to watch out and listen to them to ensure that you're safe as possible.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the training instructors? Who trained you?
I had a technical sergeant that actually trained me as well. It was a male, and I also had a staff sergeant who was female. And anytime that a gentleman would actually enter, you were also secured by having a door guard. So your door guard would announce that there was a gentleman in the Bay Area where everyone was. And he just made sure that that we knew that, hey, you're females, but we're gonna treat you like tough soldiers. Well, not soldiers, but airmen. And you're expected to do a job. He had a job to do to get us ready to be in the real outside these confined spaces. Not just in basic training where they're telling you to be safe and do this. There's going to be times where you're going to have to go out, and you're not going to have someone to say, you need to do this for safety precautions, or you need to do X, Y, Z. So the drill instructors were great. There was never a spare moment for anything. And what I mean by that, from the time that you got up and you had your 3 minutes to do your exercise or whatever, everything was timed. You would, at that time, you would go back, you would shower, you put your clothes on, you would carry a book with you. And any time that there was a spare moment, like if you were getting ready to go into the mess hall or the chow hall, you would take your book out. That was it. He said, take your book out. And instantly you unzip this thing that you carried, and you'd study. You study. So they were working on your mind. They were working on your body, getting you fit. So everything, it wasn't just one thing. You were changing in that amount of time, in a short period of time.
And the most challenging thing, both physically and mentally?
I think the mental part is probably, you can always get your body, as a young person, you can always kind of get your body into shape. You can run, and because at some point you're going to build up to it. But it's a mental thing to just to ensure that you're doing the right thing, to allow the drill instructors and others to actually have almost complete access to tell you when to go to the bathroom, or to when to eat, or when to sleep, and when to lay down, and how to run, and how fast, and how long. So I think that's a battle of the mind.
How do they separate the men and the women during your training camp?
I think there were we saw men that were around, and they were probably on the other side of the compound. It's a large base. And we would see them marching, but we hardly had any interaction with them at all, because I think their physical, whatever that they were doing, how far they were running, or whatever they were doing, it just kind of just did not, because there's different stages also. So even if there were other females that was on the same side, they could be, let's say if they were in their second week, they didn't kind of match up with the individuals that were on their 6th week of training or whatever, because you knew that they could run faster, they could run longer. So.
Why do you think the military separated the men and the women?
They got to keep you focused.
Right.
You know, as an 18-year-old, you know, your hormones are probably still going haywire or whatever, but it really to keep you focused. So, and I think which was a great thing. A lot of people still had, even phone calls were limited. You know, you had free time and you were able to call mom, dad, or boyfriend or whoever it was. But they really wanted to keep you focused. So I think it still was great.
So what did you do on your free time?
I think, you know, because like I said, being an introvert, it was that I had a sister-in-law, an amazing sister-in-law that would actually bake cookies for me. She would bake cookies, she would send letters. Free time was also shining shoes, so I can shine boots like the best with the best of them. So we would shine shoes, we would shine each other's shoes, we would iron clothes. I know that's free time, but you know, we were still always preparing for the next day or for, you know, something else that was getting ready to come up.
How well did the training prepare you for your first duty when you went to Turkey?
I think it was great. It was great. There were different things, additional things that I actually had to learn in Turkey. Because this was back in the 80s, there were different things that we needed to learn about putting on masks and putting on chem suits and different things like that. So that was something, but you know, I think going through, if I'm not mistaken, I think we actually did, in basic training, did go through the, what do you call it, like the gas chamber. I guess they call it the gas chamber or whatever. But it's just to kind of teach you how to put your mask on and different things like that. So it even taught that too. So fortunately we didn't have to use the mask, but we were prepared for it. You had to learn how to train to put your clothing on in a short amount of time, get to your duty stations, be prepared to put your mask on if need be.
And this took place during your
First duty station.
First duty station training. So
right, yes.
In between boot camp and being sent to Turkey, or this is in Turkey?
That was actually, well, in Turkey, there we would actually have to put on our different chem suits. But there's a school in between from basic training, and the school will actually teach you what your job was actually going to be. And so my first job was in communications.
What were you doing in communications?
I started out doing UHF. In communications, you did like a series of things. So you could do UHF, VHF, you know, just all of them. So it was a global station that I actually worked at. It was great. So you were able to move around. In Turkey, I was actually able to kind of move around from one area, from one office to another, because they had different communication systems there.
What does UHF mean?
Just the ultra high frequency.
So a television broadcast of some sort. Mm-hmm. And it's just to other bases? At Turkey, there were different places. There was different communication sites or whatever that you could actually go to. So there were at least 2 other places that I could actually work at that time. And let's go back to Turkey. There are 3 different offices. Are they on the same camp, or on the same base? Are they in different parts of the city?
No, they weren't in the city. They weren't in the city. They were a little bit off the base. Okay. They were a little bit off, but they were probably about a mile apart. So the different stations, work locations. They were, one of them was actually on the base, another one was off the base, and another one was probably about a mile or so away from it. So it's at least 3 of them.
And how did you get to each one?
You would actually have, they actually sent a taxi. They would send a military truck to actually take us to our building. So you just needed to be ready, you know, otherwise you need to find your way to get out there.
When you first graduated and you learned that you were going to be trained to go to Turkey in communications, how did that make you feel?
I was a little afraid. Because at that, you know, you can do communications, and of course the Air Force has different places that you can almost hit any base with communications. So probably at the latter part of my training, they pass out assignments and say you were going to Turkey. But there were probably, in my class, there were probably about 10 of us that were actually going to go to different, to Turkey, that's going to be doing the communications. So I kind of felt better, you know, but not enough to not miss home.
How did you communicate with family before you went to Turkey and then when you actually got there?
Well, you know, back we didn't have cell phones, so everyone would, you would kind of huddle around the telephone and, you know, try to make those collect calls and call mom and say, hey, I'm getting ready to get on the plane, board the plane. And once you actually got over there, you know, you were actually able to make what they call morale phone calls. And what that is so you can actually, a morale phone call is so that it kept the morale of the individual up, where they could actually call back home to make sure that everything was going fine. And I would call home and you know, talk to mom and dad, and they would say, you know, just how proud. And I was like, oh my God, you know, just I'm so far away. You know, you would realize just how far away that you were from home.
How often would you get the morale phone calls?
I think the morale phone call, if I remember correctly, was maybe about once every other week. So it wasn't, I don't believe it was every week, but probably once every other week.
What about the training you went through to get into Turkey gave you the most confidence once you got there and started doing the job?
Well, you know, although that they gave a good overview, because there were many different systems that you can actually work. Once you actually get to the, when I actually got to Turkey, they actually homed in on the one system that I was actually going to be working at that time. So it was more hands-on at that time, because a lot of the times the equipment wasn't there. You could read things in books of how to operate this, how to do this, but once you actually got to the location itself, you were actually able to push the buttons and the dials and different things like that.
Okay, one more question before we get to the wartime experience. How much free time did you have? Did you have more free time when you were in Turkey versus in training?
I would say yes. I did 12-hour shifts, and the 12-hour shifts were 3 days on and then 3 days off. So you made the very most of your 3 days. So you could actually do a tour at some times. You can kind of, a lot of people did online courses. It was just a lot of things to see and do. And I guess just with me still being a teenager at the time, I kind of just lazed around and went shopping and, you know, and just liking that newfound freedom.
Did you do any of the tours? I
did do some of the tours. So I've been to Istanbul, I've been to Gaziantep. There's a couple places in Turkey that I got a chance to go to.
Does anything stand out?
I still have the carpets.
Yeah.
So Gaziantep is a place where they actually make the handmade carpets or whatever. So I still have some of the carpets there. So I didn't bring them all out at once. And so what you need to know is that Turkey, that first assignment, was not the last time that I visited Turkey. So I actually had a second assignment visiting Turkey as well. So that's why I still have some of the carpets and different things there.
Well, let's talk about the second assignment. How many years was there between the first Turkey assignment and the second?
Well, the first one was from 85. The first one was from 85 to 86, 87, somewhere in between there. And at that time, believe it or not, I found just the right guy. I left and I went to Offutt, Nebraska. He went someone else. And then I guess how many years? Probably maybe about 10 years in between, which was a big change.
You got married?
I got married. So that same one that I met in Turkey on my first assignment, I married him, and we went back. After having 2 children, we actually went back over to Turkey.
How long did you serve altogether?
It was 22 years altogether.
22 years? Mm-hmm. And you started in 1985?
85,
Okay. And you got married. How many years were you in when you got married?
I was probably in probably about 5 years. Probably about 5 years.
And your husband?
My husband was active duty at the time. He was also in communications, and he did 20 years in the military.
Tell me about the second time you traveled for the military. Mm-hmm. You were in Turkey, and in '87 you came back to the States. And What was the next duty station?
Well, from '87, when I came back to the States, that was Offutt, Nebraska, Offutt Air Force Base, Nebraska, where I also was still into communications, and that's pretty much where I actually started working some of my satellites and different things like that. And so that was the one system that I worked. I worked with satellites for about 10 years at Offutt.
What did you do with the satellites?
Just a series of things.
On a typical day, what were you doing with the satellite? Repositioning it, monitoring?
I think I could probably just go with monitoring that.
Okay. May I ask what you were monitoring for?
Well, there's always traffic. There's always traffic that comes over on satellites. So I can actually take a look at some of the traffic that was on the satellites that's coming down from the satellites.
Okay. And did you serve during any combat periods?
Yes. There was the, of course, the Persian. No, I'm sorry. The Iraq. Gosh, I guess I'm drawing a blank, but
the first Iraqi War.
Yes. And so Operation Desert Storm and Desert Shield, that I was actually there, and then of course Kosovo, still at the. That was another thing, and like I said, that's not necessarily holding the gun to myself. That is actually probably keystroke at a time, working that, or actually being supportive for all of the other ones who are behind the enemy's lines or who are actually on the battlefield fighting.
What was your role during the fighting?
For satellite, I monitored for any kind of traffic. So even if there were aircraft that were flying over, that, so if there was ever any trouble, there's always just different kinds. They needed different avenues to be able to communicate back home. So if some of it was UHF, or some of it was VHF, or even satellites, that was the communication. So if your aircraft had that system in there, they would be able to communicate back to the home base.
Where were you during Desert Storm?
I was at Offutt in Nebraska.
And you were communicating with pilots in Iraq?
I could communicate, absolutely.
Can you tell me about a typical or an atypical time when you were communicating from Nebraska to a pilot in Iraq?
Well, I'll tell you one of my greatest moments that I actually had, or a moment that kind of stands out to me. So a typical day is that you kind of see talking that's going on. So of course they want to make sure that they've got good radio check. They got a good comm check. You let them know that I can see you, I can hear you, everything's going great. You'll see aircrafts talking to each other. One particular times, nothing special that was going on. But all of a sudden, going across my system went Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. And this was an aircraft that was critically low on fuel. And he was in the Atlantic. He was in the Atlantic and not getting ready to make it so he can actually have enough fuel to do that. So that was a memorable moment for me. So.
And what did you do?
Well, of course, you answer them. Here I am, and you let them know, how can I be of service? What do you need? And they just start splurting out everything. You, of course, start using every communication possible that you need. You use telephones, you use UHF, VHF, or whatever else. You get them some gas. So we got a hold of a air tanker. They were able to go in and service them, give them some fuel, and they were able to land safely.
That must have made you feel pretty good.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So, I mean, you absolutely know that makes your job know just how important it is to monitor.
Was your service any different when you were in Kosovo, or?
Not in Kosovo, but for that war,
Certainly.
actually doing that. As a matter of fact, for that one, I worked in the one of the command posts. So that's a lot of communications, different systems, whatever, as well. And that's basically just monitoring a lot of systems, making sure that everybody kind of stays in contact with, making sure that everyone stays in contact with each other. So whether they're actually getting ready to, where they're flying, even if it's a training mission or different things like that. So whatever that they need, that we were their eyes and ears that were on the ground.
Do you have any memorable moments from that conflict?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. There's always, just Whiteman is the home of the B-2, that aircraft. And Whiteman is, I think they probably have about anywhere from 23 to 25 B-2 aircrafts, and it was great to be able to go and to not only just see it on television or anything, to actually go up and to go inside and actually see what the pilots, all the different equipment and different things like that. But to be able to see those pilots every single day, to have a safe flight, sir, and and whether it's training or they needed to do something, so.
Okay, and then for Desert Shield?
Pretty much, I think that one's also back at Offutt, and that one's just making sure, just basically it's pretty much the same thing, making sure the communication systems, anytime that they needed any kind of communications assistance, eyes and ears on the ground way back here. So we had real-time communications where, if it's 12 hours or 14 hours there, we're there. So we're there 24 hours a day, making sure that they always have all the coverage that they actually need to have. If they need to get fuel, or if they need to get word passed or anything, we were that source, or that source of support for them to ensure that they had everything they needed to complete their mission as well.
Of the three conflicts that we've talked about, which one would you say was the most challenging for you personally?
I think because the job was very, very similar. I think probably the one that was at maybe the Kosovo was probably the most rewarding, because I can, when you see the pilot and you actually know not just that the plane is just actually flying, you actually know the individual's name, and you know about his kids, and you want to see them come back home safely, and they've done a great job, and it's a sense of pride that that I was standing there and that I had your back, and anything that you needed, I was here and I was going to take care of it for you.
Do you remember any of the names?
I do, but I'm not quite sure that they would want me to mention their names.
Okay. Let's fast forward to later in your career, and when you decided that you were no longer going to be in the military.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you, I'll back up just a small amount. Okay. And after I got out of communications, at some point, I actually went over start thinking about my career a little bit more, thinking about right at the 10-year, you're thinking like, I got 10 more years, I'm going to retire, so what am I going to do? And so what I ended up doing is talking to a supervisor who said, well, what do you want to do? And here it is, those supervisors are great. And he says, well, what is it that you have a desire to do? And it was something that I didn't think that I could do, which was actually be in the legal field. And we talked about it, and my husband and I, and that was going to be something different. And he said, I think you should go for it. And I did. So I became a paralegal in the military.
And the military trained you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they trained me. So I did court martials. I did legal briefs. I did claims. I helped out whenever there was a situation. I think the closest I was actually stationed at Whiteman in Missouri, where Hurricane Isabel, I believe, they actually came to Virginia Beach, and I was able to pack my bags in 24 hours to be able to come and assist anybody that was on that base, to make sure that they had everything that they need to find out, like, their claims. Do you have clothes? Are you out of your house? Do you have food? What was damaged? The military was really taking care of their people, and being in the legal office, I got a chance to actually see that.
Tell me about your proudest moment working in the legal office.
Oh. Wow, there were probably quite a few of them. We not only put the bad guys away, but we did help. We helped families. But I think claims is definitely it, where you could help put people back into a position before something went wrong. So if it was a house fire, you could go in and you take a look at all of their damaged goods, and you would adjudicate those claims. So that gave me a sense of putting them back on the right track, or getting them close to being on the right track to get back to be made whole, after losing so many things. So the same thing about also with Hurricane Isabel. when she showed up. The water, I've never seen so much damage and devastation. You know, I saw seaweed in the parking lot of cars that were, you know, right in the top of that. We were able to make those people right again by adjudicating their claims and different things like that.
Oh, wonderful. And how many years did you serve as a paralegal?
I did paralegal in the military for 10 years.
Okay.
So communications for 12 and paralegal for 10.
Were you stationed at different places as a paralegal?
For paralegal was at Whiteman. It's where I actually did what they call cross train, and then at Bowling Air Force Base in D.C.
And when you decided that you were going to get out of the military, had your husband already retired?
Yes, he had. He had retired probably about maybe about 10 years before.
And what went to your decision to retire?
I think you know just when it's time. When it was just time, and it was 22 years, and we didn't want to move our children anymore, our kids. You want to kind of get a sense of, you want to put some roots down, and I think that was it for me. I was ready to put some roots down and kind of get on with the next phase of my life.
Okay. What are some of the lessons you learned from your military service?
Tons of lessons. My kids tell me that that I have life lessons. That's my number one thing, life lessons. And I've learned those life lessons, and I pass them on to them, and I try to pass them on to a lot more people. That life is kind of short. Life is short, and you really want to make the most of it. The military has been great also. It kind of helped me to realize about education. That 18-year-old never wanted to go to school ever again. The military has been great. I graduated a couple years ago. I have 2 master's degrees now. So I've learned to tighten my belt and to study and to work hard for things that you really want.
Okay. Would you want your children to serve in the military?
I think it would be great. I think it would be great. Neither one of them have, and I have 2 daughters, and neither one of them decided to join the military. They pretty much wanted to kind of grab roots, and I can respect that too. But I think it is great for both of them. If both of them would, even if they would have done 4 years, I think it would have helped them along in life. It just helped me grow up so much really, really fast.
Okay, and what are you doing now that you're out of the military?
I'm a contractor working for a government agency, working with doing declassification of documents.
How did your military training and your military experience prepare you for that?
Basically, that is probably the ideal job because a lot of the documents and everything that we actually handle, it's legal documents. So I actually was able to put that that career still into practice into the private sector. So it's great. So I still recommend it. I'm glad that I did it.
Good. 2 more questions. What message would you like to leave for future generations who will view this interview?
The military is great. I think also for women, it's a great opportunity to go in. I think it's great for everyone if it's well suited for it. But it gives you an opportunity to open up a lot of different horizons, things that you never thought that you would actually do. It helps you with education. I got a chance to travel. I absolutely didn't realize that I would love to travel, and on some of the times that we were actually off, we were able to what they call Space 8 or hopping to different locations. And we were able to, my husband and I were able to do that with our children. We've done so many different places. We've hit Turkey, we've hit Spain, we've been to Germany, we've been to Italy, we've been to Portugal, we've been, I've been to Hawaii and Germany, and I've just traveled quite a bit. So I think it's good to give it a try. For women in general, it's something that I take hold of, because at some point someone would not have let us do it way back, but it's great that we have that opportunity, that we can actually go in, and there's so many different jobs that we can actually do now. So
Is there anything that you feel we have not discussed that you'd like to share?
no, I think we've covered it. I think we've covered it. But I'm glad that I did it. I'm very blessed for the opportunity to have joined the military, and that had to be just a wise mom to have actually steered me into that direction. So I'm glad I did it. I wouldn't change a thing.
Well, we certainly thank your mother, and we thank you. Thank you for coming out and sharing your experience with us. This concludes our interview. On behalf of the Veterans History Project, the Library of Congress, Congresswoman Donna L. Edwards, and Prince George's Community College, I would like to thank you, Sergeant Keys. Thank you for taking the time and sharing your story for this Veterans History Project.
Thank you.